every time you see one of these JDM Roadsters on the street, you probably can't help but smile. That's because it's the only sports car that can smile back. And whatever kind of car you're looking for, whether it's for slamming it and sending it sideways, weekend getaways, or just a plain old midlife crisis, the Miata is always the answer. But for all its success, did you know that the Miata was launched as a part of a failed car brand?
What?
Or that it was supposed to be the villain car in the original Fast and Furious movie? Or that this cute little compact is actually inspired by a form of deadly combat? The Miata is basically the gateway drug into enthusiast culture, but there's probably a lot you didn't know about it. I'm Garrett, and today in Ideal, we're getting into this cute little convertible's deepest, darkest secrets. And trust me, there's a lot of secrets hiding in that tiny trunk. So, let's kick it into overdrive with everything you didn't know about the Mazda Miata. But first, let's review everything you probably should know about the Miata. It's a reliable, front-engine, right-wheel drive roadster that's been bringing joy to the world since 1989. It's always been powered by a naturally aspirated inline-4, it's always had a manual option, it's always been fun to drive, and it's always been manufactured by our friends at Japanese automaker Mazda. The Miata was the brainchild of this dude, Bob Hall. Bob Hall was an automotive journalist who landed a job with Mazda USA. It was always his dream to bring back the classic British roadster, and Mazda, they let him do just that. The design and styling of the Miata is largely thanks to Tom Montano, who imbued the Miata with so much personality, some might even say it has a soul. I know I do. For most of the 1980s, the design team at Mazda USA and the engineering team back in Japan worked in sync to deliver one of the most iconic cars of all time, the Yunos Roadster, aka the Mark I MX-5, or as it's known to us here in Freedom Land, the NA Mazda Miata. The first-gen NA set the standard with its pop-up headlights and perfectly tuned handling. It's so lightweight, so fun to drive, and packs so much personality, you almost won't notice it's only got 116 horsepower. But who needs horsepower when you can make your car wink? Mazda increased displacement and power when they bumped up from a 1.6 liter to a 1.8 in 1994. But aside from a few special additions, the NA Miata was largely unchanged for its entire production run. That is until 1999 when some bigger changes were made. 1999 is when the NB Miata hit the scene. Also, shouts out to the Space Shuttle Hess truck from the same year. Due to new safety standards, Mazda had to nix the pop-up headlights. In their place, Tom Montano brought over styling cues from his other masterpiece, the third-gen RX-7. This resulted in the more refined and mature-looking NB. The NB carried over a ton of shared parts from the first gen, which helped keep costs down and kept it just as joyful as the original. Mazda's motorsport division got in on the fun too, and they released the Mazda Speed Miata. This thing was good for almost 180 horses, which is a ton of power considering this thing's basically a street-legal go-kart. Later, the NB got a facelift and variable valve timing, but otherwise the Miata was still the car we all fell in love with. That is, until the next generation changed things. The third-gen NC Miata represented the biggest changes yet, because, well, everything got bigger. The 1.8 liter was beefed up to a 2.0, the NC was longer, wider, and heavier than its predecessors. The NC really brought the Miata into the 21st century. It was roomier, it had more tech, there was even a power retractable hardtop option. But all those quality of life improvements came at the expense of the driving experience. Sure, the NC was more comfortable and more practical as a daily driver than the stripped down NA or NB, but the Miata was never supposed to be the best practical daily driver. It was supposed to be the ultimate fun machine that anybody could afford. Because of this, the NC is seen as the black sheep or the boat of the Miata family. And this really made Mazda reconsider what was at the heart of their flagship car. The ND saw the Miata return to form, with all of the focus being on driver engagement. Mazda addressed all of the critiques of the previous generation. The weight was trimmed down, the power was increased, and even though it was the first Miata designed without Tom Montano, Mazda still nailed the design and styling. The Miata went from girl next door to drop-dead bombshell. And Mazda replaced the power hardtop option with the retractable fastback. The ND represents the best Miata yet. It comes with everything you should expect from a 21st century car, but still retains that purest roadster experience. By the way, we have this limited edition Miata tee. This is a one-time thing, so make sure you snag one now before they're all gone forever. So now that we're all caught up, it's time for 14 things that no one ever told you about the Mazda Miata. When it launched in Japan in 1989, it wasn't even a Mazda. At the time, Mazda was trying to support its sub-brand Unos. So the Miata was originally released as the Unos Roadster. Unfortunately, the Unos brand didn't survive past 1996. Thankfully, the Miata did. One of the major philosophies that drove the Miata's original design comes from Yabusame, the Japanese art of archery on horseback. Its guiding principle is Jinbai Itai, or the idea of oneness between rider and horse. Mazda chased that same sense of oneness with its original design, resulting in the 50-50 weight distribution, so that the car really felt more like an extension of the driver themselves. Johnny Tran, you know, the original villain in the first Fast and Furious movie, was originally supposed to drive a Miata. However, Universal execs thought that the Miata wasn't masculine enough. And so, the Miata was swapped out for a Honda S2K. But I don't know, I think they could have given him one of these. Pretty masculine, right? During the planning stages of the Miata, Mazda pitted their design teams from the US and Japan against each other. The US team came up with the front engine, rear-wheel drive concept we all know today, but the Japanese teams had different ideas. One was a front-engine, front-wheel drive roadster, and the other was a midship Miata. Now, I'm sure we're all glad they ditched the front-engine, front-wheel drive concept, but I do wonder what life would be like if we had gotten that midship Miata. I think it would be pretty nice. Like the idea of driving the Miata, but hate the idea of driving something so low-powered? Drop a big old V8 in that thing! There are multiple engine conversion kits on the market to painlessly LS swap your Miata. While Mazda got heavy hitter Montano to do the design of the original Miata, they left its performance to chief engineer Toshihiko Hirai, who had never developed a sports car before. So the US team shipped a Lotus Elan to Japan for Hirai to study and reverse engineer so he could capture that roadster magic. And to his credit, Hirai knocked it out of the park. The Miata is a convertible at heart, but Mazda did make OEM hardtops for people who preferred a coupe experience. These hardtops are probably the single most coveted OEM part from the NA and NB generations. The going rate for these hardtops is anywhere from $2,000 to $3,500, and because of their value, they're stolen almost as often as a new Kia. Personally, I'd skip the hardtop altogether. It's more fun to drive topless. The Miata isn't just a car, it's a culture. The Southern California Miata Club has been around almost as long as the Miata's been available in the US, with some members reaching over 30 years of participation in the group. You can find Miata clubs all over the country, but if just joining a club isn't enough for you, you might want to pack your bags and plan a trip to Italy, because there's a whole luxury resort devoted entirely to the Miata in the rolling hills of Umbria. It's called MIATALAND, where dreams come true. The dreams come true part is just me, but it is my dream to go there. The resort boasts one of the largest private Miata collections in the world, and part of your stay includes taking the fleet out for a spin. Speaking of the Italian love of roadsters, I said earlier that the Miata was always made by Mazda, but this next Miata, it isn't a Mazda at all. The Fiat 124 Spider, aka the Fiata, was a joint collaboration between Fiat and Mazda. It's built on the ND platform, but its styling is inspired by the 124s of old. This thing is a great way to stand out at your next Miata Club meet. But what if you want to get racy with your Miata? Not only is the Miata a favorite in the streets, but it's a favorite in the sheets as well. Just check out this Miata bed conversion.
Oh, behave.
And it's also a favorite on track. In fact, there's an entire spec series devoted to the beloved Miata, the MX-5 Cup. Racers drive modified Miatas, and it features super exciting action. The MX-5 Cup is overseen by IMSA, and races at tracks like Daytona, Laguna Seca, and Watkins Glen. And if you want to race a Miata, but don't want to risk crashing yours, you can participate in the MX-5 Cup virtually on iRacing. Provided you've got a decent sim rig, of course. Now let's highlight some of the best special edition Miatas to come out over the years, like the 30th Anniversary Edition, or the 1991 UK Le Mans Edition, celebrating the 787B's victory at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. But my pick? It's the 2000 SE that came in mahogany mica. It came with a matching picnic and wine set, and that thing is now a Miata collector's holy grail. Let me know if you got a lead on one down in the comments. But say you want to take your picnic trackside. Well then, check out the Exocet. Say you love the Miata, but it's still just not go-karty enough for you. Transform it into an Exocet. The Exocet is a kit car built off of a donor Miata, and it turns your Miata into a track weapon. It uses the Miata mechanical internals, but puts them on a super lightweight chassis. There's even an off-road kit edition. This thing is a straight-up Miata dune monster. Now the Exocet is awesome, but before you get rid of all your body panels, you're gonna wanna give them a once-over. I'll tell you why. Miata designer Tom Montano has personally signed hundreds, if not thousands of Miatas over the years. So pop the hood and check the trunk to see if you have one of the coveted Tom Montano always inspired signatures. Now it's time for what is the ideal Miata to buy, powered by the Ideal Car Buying Strategies, which, if you haven't, check out the link below for our free workshop showing you how to buy your ideal Miata, or any other ideal car. So you're convinced the Miata really is always the answer, and you want to know my pick for the ideal Miata. Drum roll, please. We have the drum roll? Yeah? 2 words, baby. Factory Turbo. The one-hit wonder, NB Mazda Speed Miata needs to make a comeback. Its mighty 1.8-liter 4-cylinder is turbocharged right from the factory, and with air-to-air intercoolers, these things were a classic right from the factory. Now, you can still find them for around $10K. But better act fast, because once you tell all your friends to like and subscribe to this video, prices are sure to go up. So there you have it on all things Miata. Do you agree with my ideal pick? What would be your ideal Miata? And what Miatifications would you make to it? Let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, if you're looking for other cars to mod, check out these sleepers with insane tuning potential right up here. Or watch whatever YouTube recommends over here. Otherwise, I'm Garrett, and whatever Gen Miata you're driving, promise me one thing: that you'll keep on living that ideal lifestyle, baby!